Hi, everybody. Today is Monday, September 29th. It is, where are we? We're in Brownsville Middle School. This is the Mount Mansfield Unified Union School Board meeting. It is our last meeting in September, and we're going to run through the agenda and get the meeting started. So we will do a roll call. We have community comments after that, so thank you. I see there are a bunch of people here for comments. We can talk about the ends policies and monitoring report framework so that we can start getting some monitoring reports and talking about those at board meetings. We're just going to do an update on Act 73 and what's going on in today's world with that. We have a seconded motion from the Finance Committee to approve a reserve fund transfer. We'll talk about that. An update from our superintendent, an update on the DQS Rubrics, the District Quality Standard Rubrics that the Agency of Education is going to be using to let districts know if they're in compliance. We'll talk about that a little bit more. We can approve our minutes and get some committee updates because our committees have been meeting. Yay, they're going crazy. Before we do a roll call, I just want to say Helen is here again from, don't tell me, Huntington. I have words, they're just really slow to come out of my mouth right now. But we unfortunately neglected to put you on the agenda to approve you as an official board member. So you will still be acting in an unofficial capacity until our next board meeting when you can have a vote, because we don't like to vote on things that we don't want. So apologies to you.
So I'm not voting today.
You are not voting. I mean, you're welcome to vote. We use no comment.
Sure.
So we're really glad that you're here and you drove all the way here for this meeting. So thank you. So Pat, would you take us through a roll call, please?
Yes, sure. Tara Arneson.
Present.
Kevin Campbell.
Yep, I'm here, but we'll need to drop in about an hour.
Heather Chadwick. No. Alison Conant.
Here.
Stephen Diglio.
Here.
Edie Groening.
I am here.
James Granzow.
Here.
Susan Lillick.
I'm here.
Sandra Limoges.
Here.
Kyle Magida.
Here.
Ethan Maurer.
I'm here.
Stuart Marigeau.
He's not going to be here tonight.
Thanks. Katie Nelson.
Here.
And Lisa Pollock.
Present.
With student rep Eli Wimet.
Here.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Great, thank you. So hopefully at our next meeting, we'll have a new board member and a student board member. So, because that's great. So we're going to start with community comments, as we do most of our meetings. Community comments will be limited to no more than 5 minutes per person. Board requests that participants clearly state their name, place of residence, and topic of comment. The school board will take no action on items raised during community comments, and dialogue exchanges will be for clarification unless immediate action is required. Action may occur at a subsequent meeting. So if there's anybody here for community comments, just let me know.
I would like to make a community. Can I sit right here so I can see your faces?
Sure.
Just for a second. Really out of breath. I ate a lot of food and then jogged, which that just doesn't work good for me. But so I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Stacey Lang. I live in Underhill. I have 2 kiddos that go to JDS. I have a kindergartner in the English program, and I have a 3rd grader who just transitioned into the English program after being in the Spanish immersion program for a few years. 3 years. The past couple years have been really hard for us, my daughter, and for our family. We navigated some pretty significant operational challenges at JDS and some programmatic challenges with the SI program. Significant enough that I left my 15-year-long career as a senior leader in marketing technology so that I could focus on my kids and so that I could collaborate with the administration. I've worked with John Muldoon, Al Bagini when he was here, Andrew Jones, Katie Brea in her new role, Jen Cote, a bunch of people to mitigate these challenges to ensure that other kids and other families aren't ending up in the situation that we were in. So I'm excited about that collaboration. And I'm also really excited that in like this new chapter of my life, I get to be more civically engaged, more engaged in the school community. So you will see me lingering in the background of these meetings. I might reach out and ask you guys questions as I'm learning. And if I have observations or questions or comments or challenges, I'll use this community comment time to voice those, whether it's observations from previous meetings or our current meeting they'll be sitting in. So I'm here to listen, I'm here to learn, and hopefully along the way I'll make some type of meaningful contribution. So anyways, thank you for letting me introduce myself.
Thank you. I saw a hand go up. Is anybody else in the room? Okay, online, Carmen?
Hi, my name is Carmen Tedesco, and I am a parent from Huntington. I have 2 kids now at CHMS. It's hard to even believe. One's in 5th grade and the other's in 7th, Cooper and Eleanor Straight. And I'm actually attending this meeting for the first time as a community member, bringing in my thoughts, because we've had some struggles with the busing. And I want to really thank the administration for sending out an email tonight. But I also want to just acknowledge that our kids in Huntington have been struggling with the bus situation to and from the middle school for as long as my son has been in the middle school. So for the last 2 years, we've experienced a lot of violence, really somewhat unsafe conditions with other students. And I think there's just been a lack of ability to have someone on the bus that can be a proctor or a monitor. So we had a recent incident, which is why I'm attending this meeting. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the incident, but it happened last week. And that has sparked enough concern that Joe O'Brien from the middle school has agreed to ride the bus sometime. But there was a child removed from the bus. That said, this is not a standalone incident with one child. It's kind of an ongoing issue across the board. And it has meant that almost the entire friend circle that my son and daughter are part of, which is more than 10 different families, are now having to come up with their own transportation to and from the school. So I just wanted to put that out there because I know that people are thinking about alternatives to the busing. And I'm really open to ideas around smaller that are a little bit safer than having the Wild West that is the bus. And this is all coming from someone who I rode the bus quite significant distances from the time I was in kindergarten all the way up through high school. So I do believe the bus builds character, but I'm also a little afraid of the violence that I've been hearing and seeing. So that's my comment.
So thank you. I need to just respond quickly and say we appreciate this being raised to the board and anticipate that this will be remedied quickly. And I'm apologizing to all of the families for whom this has been an issue. There will be more communication, so thank you for bringing that up to our attention. Megan, I saw that you had your hand up. Did you want to say something else?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Megan Detweiler. I am also a parent from Huntington, and I put my hand up really quickly after Carmen because we are here tonight really sharing about the same issue. And again, to reiterate what she said as well, we're really grateful that we received an email communication from Dr. Muldoon this evening. I think it was encouraging as a parent to hear the commitment to helping address some of the challenges of the bus. But as Carmen shared, this wasn't an isolated incident. So I really wanted to come share tonight to talk much more about the impact it's having on my kids specifically and my concerns for the future, to just kind of continue to feel the encouragement to address some of these challenges. So as Carmen shared, there was an incident on the bus last week from the Huntington to Richmond school that involved some unsafe behavior. This situation escalated throughout the drive and required the students to transfer buses before getting to the middle school. From my son's account, I really want to pause for a moment and just applaud the bus driver. It sounds as though he remained calm, cool, really worked hard to de-escalate the situation and prevent it from spiraling out of control. So really kudos to the bus driver, because I know they are there to get our kids to and from school safely and have a bunch of other challenges along the way. That said, one of the challenges we've seen is that this seems to be escalating over time. And whenever I go to the pickup line at the middle school, I notice as I wait in that long queue of cars, many of the families in those other vehicles are also from Huntington. So I think this just speaks volumes to the discomfort many students and families are feeling about bus transportation. And I also want to just acknowledge that these bus incidences affect our students beyond just the ride itself. My 7th grader was upset by what happened on the bus last week and on other rides to and from school, but was able to process the event quickly and move on and forward through his day. I'm concerned about my 4th grader who will be riding this bus to middle school next year. He's much more sensitive to the energy and of others and the environment around him. And an event like this that is stressful or dysregulating on the bus ride could really impact his day and carry over into that school day, affecting his ability to settle in, focus, and learn. And for me, that's not a minor issue. It really becomes a barrier of access for him and other students like him. It's also worth noting that the bus ride to Huntington, from Huntington to Camel's Hump, is long. My student really relies on that breakfast that the school offers each morning, but more often than not, the school bus arrives late to school and he isn't able to access that free meal that so many others in the district can. So again, in conclusion, we're really grateful for the email that we received today and the communication from the administration and the commitments going forward. I can say it was a little disheartening that it took this long to receive it. It leaves us as parents to fill in gaps of our students' stories and other parents' secondhand knowledge. So we just really appreciate proactive communication that helps us feel informed as parents and helps rebuild our trust in the busing system that truthfully, I think does need a little bit of repair work. So again, we thank you for your time and attention to these comments and already for your commitment to addressing this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you being here also. Kathleen?
Hi, I'm Katie Falk. I have a new middle schooler. I'm also from Huntington. I'm not going to be able to say anything as well as the other 2 moms from Huntington other than that my son Hunter was on the bus for that incident and called me from his Apple Watch after, like, extremely upset. So I thought this was kind of the norm with the buses. So I found other transportation for him after that happened. I received the letter today. I'm having a lot of over noise. I don't know if you guys can hear me, but
we can hear you just fine, but we're going to leave the room and see if that helps.
I did receive the email. That's better, yeah. So, I'm looking forward to some changes because I do think it was a lot easier to have him hop on that bus from Brewster Pierce to Camel's Hump. That was really nice. So I don't know if there is someone riding the bus this week, we'll give it another try. It sounds like John O'Brien's going to ride the bus. I don't know if that's a definite, but anyway, I appreciate the letter and the other Huntington moms. I'm just here to support you guys. So that's all I have. Thanks, guys.
And just for clarification, Joe O'Brien is going to be riding the bus. There will be more close contact, and I imagine there will be more information from the administration to the families. So thank you. Any other community comment? Yeah.
I'm going to speak for the Huntington dads. And I have a freshman who was riding the bus that day, and I think the other impact that hasn't been addressed is there are 2 buses that drive north from Huntington in the morning. One is stopping at the middle school and then picking up students there and then going up to the high school. I think The other one is sort of the express bus. That express bus actually picked up those students, had to go to the middle school. And so my daughter was very late to school that morning. And I think, whether you're 4th grade, 7th grade, 9th grade, or whatever, that can stress people out. And so she had the bus has been hard for nothing that's happened, but just her own internal struggles with riding the bus. But it did impact her as a 9th grader who was just starting out the school year and really having a hard time walking into school late as well. I will just say, I made a choice to live in Huntington. I know that the distance is, it's a factor, right? You make that choice, you know what you're getting yourself into, I think. And you have to roll with it. At the same time, I think it's really important that we have an effective, efficient bus system. I did ask in the finance committee meeting of our superintendent to just maybe look at how transportation is done, what's the data, who's riding, because the queue I think is a really important piece. I hate the amount of cars that are sitting idling in our driveway, in our parking lot, and it's at every school. I remember there was a time when there was a real effort to end the idling, but that is just a bunch of cars spewing out gas for a really long time. And what's that alternative look like? Because there are kids that are riding the bus for a really long time. One other piece that was mentioned to me is that the regular bus that leaves Campbell's Hump gets to Brewster Pierce about 15 minutes before the activity bus. The activity bus is leaving 45 minutes afterwards. So it's almost easier to ride the activity bus and get directly back as it is to ride the regular bus. So there's just, I think, some challenges that are there. Some of them are insurmountable, I think. But I think looking at it more comprehensively with data would be really great.
Okay. Thank you for your public comment.
Thank you.
I saw another hand go up. Karen?
Yes, apologies for being late, but I just also wanted to quickly say I'm also a Huntington mom. My twin girls who are in 5th grade were also on the bus that day. But I wanted to stress it wasn't an isolated incident, that my daughter had been coming home since really school started, having negative interactions with one of the children who was kicking her, hitting her. She came home even at the end of the day after all her dance activities, still with bruises from this. I think in the moment, it sounds like the bus driver did do a really great job, but in the past, she had been telling the bus driver that she was being hit. And she was uncomfortable, but because there's not a lot of seats, if she got on late and that was the only seat, she was forced to be in that situation. So I do think it's more than just this one big incident. I'm glad that there was a reaction to it. But I do just want to stress that coming into Camel's Hump, we had been told about the buses last year. The girls would take the bus sometimes to Richmond and then take the bus to Arabesque. And so they had to switch. And even just those 10 minutes they were on the bus from Camel's Hump, it was really bad. They talked about kids swearing, kids being really inappropriate, feeling bullied, and just that really quick bus ride. So I do think it's a larger issue. And I just, again, I apologize for being late. It sounds like there were some solutions talked about, but I just wanted to kind of weigh in and also say as another Huntington mom that my girls also experienced that. That event was very scary for them, but also because of kind of the physical harm that they had been receiving up to this time, the bus had been fairly traumatic for them for a while. So, thank you.
Well, again, thank you everybody for sharing. Apologies that this has turned in, that this is an ongoing issue that has not been dealt with. And as I said, the administration will be reaching out. And we will, as a board, will get an update at a point. All right, so switching gears to the global ends policy. So talking about ends policies, monitoring report, and the framework for that. John?
Yeah. The So just as a refresher, we met as a partial board group with the leadership team this summer to review the ends and talk about the data that we have available and start have a pretty open and brainstorming conversation about outcomes and potential measures that felt like they might be meaningful for us. That was a really open and generative conversation. You may recognize the chart paper up in the front of the room. I just like to bring out our artifacts whenever we can. So those are our notes from those conversations. The conversation today is actually a little bit of a different one because we had also identified using the ends policy as something that could foster community engagement or community discourse around what we've identified as the most important parts of our educational system here. And also we had said that we wanted to revisit the actual format of monitoring for the ends itself. So taking a look at what options we have for receiving reports, what it is that we want to receive in the actual reports, and what feels meaningful for you all as a board. It's still my job to create those reports and to interpret the policies, but we had earmarked this for a conversation for us to have. And so what I've done for that second part of the conversation, and some of you that are joining me in the policy governance training that started, was that last week?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was last week. That have joined me for the policy governance training that the VSBA is putting on. Saw some other districts talking about different approaches to monitoring reports. And so I have some samples that we can look at to inform our conversation. So that's the rough framework for tonight. If we have time, which I don't think we will because we're a pretty full agenda, we can revisit these conversations about outcomes and how we talk about the ends in action. So that said, I'll go back to that original question about utilizing monitoring reports for community dialogue about student success. And so this is something that we'll definitely talk more about in the community engagement group, but we had earmarked it for a whole board conversation. So I don't know if anybody has ideas or reactions to using monitoring to foster dialogue.
So I'm not seeing anybody jumping in on this one. For me, it's the data that sparks the conversation, and it's not necessarily the report, but it's the data that support the report that is the most meaningful. So I love that the report takes a lot of data and makes it make sense, but I know that when we can see the trajectory, that's where I'm like, oh, that's what's happening. And so I appreciate that level of analysis. And if there's a way to do more analysis, that's, I think that's where the conversations will come from.
I'll just jump in. I mean, it's very revealing. It shows the actual, like the data is the example of the day-to-day ways in which the ends are like living and breathing in our schools. And I think that the drawback is that, and we've talked about this before, not enough people understand policy governance, nor do they understand that these monitoring reports are just so flush with information that is helpful. But to me, sometimes it feels just like our website is filled with all of this information, but taking the time to have to comb through that to find what you want to learn is the hard part. So for us, like, yeah, we do read the monitoring report and go through all of those links and look at the meaningful data. But I think that's where it's just another blue hyperlink on a page to most of our community. So not all of the examples that were at the policy governance training spoke to me like as though they were really getting the the correct meaning of a monitoring report, but some of the more real life examples, if there is a piece of school life that exemplifies the ends that could be a living, breathing example in a meeting, that would help people feel more engaged if they were invited. So, if we were like, okay, you don't really know what any of this means, but if we can show you from a student perspective and they can explain to you how this shows up in the daily life of school, maybe people would be more interested in attending and understand more thoroughly what the reports are about.
Can I ask how frequently do we receive that data and as a board, or how frequently is that data being collected and disseminated?
Yep. So that's a great question. One, because it's good for us to talk about, but two, because that's actually going to have to change as part of the new district quality standards, which we'll get to later in the meeting. Currently, the policy governing boards across the state have different monitoring tempos. We go through, or we've historically gone through all of our monitoring reports over a 3-year period spaced out.
That was supposed to be temporary.
Right. And the new standards is that every monitoring report is delivered annually.
Okay. And then as a board, do we receive data to support that throughout the year, or is that kind of like it just jumps to us at the end of the year?
So, yeah, once a year,
Okay.
we would get so monitoring reports are multiple. There are many monitoring reports.
Yep.
Once a year, we would see each one. So once a year, we would talk about the ends.
This one. Okay.
And other things like that. Once a year, we talk about financial protections around the district, right? Once we talk to all of the law.
And it's different than our annual report. I think is an important
Which goes out
distinction.
to the community.
Right.
Yeah.
Thinking about, we were just saying about the depth of all of our policies, and there's a lot there. Would it make sense to simplify that and cover more of the 1.0, 1.1, 1.2, like lump them all the ones together, lump all the twos together? Because I think sometimes like there's a minutia of kind of like, what is this policy actually talking about? And anybody that's, if we're talking about trying to engage community conversation, it's too much in the weeds for any kind of conversation. But so maybe the monitoring report is a broader look at the 1, 2, or 3.
So you're conflating two things, right? So board oversight should be into the minutia that you're talking about.
Okay.
Because if you aren't looking at it, then you don't have oversight into it, right? You don't have eyes into it.
Yep.
But community conversation may not be that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Board members need to be at that level of community. So
I am conflating those two things.
Yep.
And so this actually bleeds into the format question, because one of the things that was talked about in the policy governance training, which sent me down a rabbit hole between last week and this week, was the different ways people take the requirement of the monitoring report and then try to do something with it to make it live in the community. And so Burlington is an example where they take and deliver the monitoring report, but then the administrative team does a whole audio-visual thing for each monitoring report for the community that tries to put actual student words and examples to what was delivered in the written report. Non-ABE has an interesting format that's different than what I've seen anywhere else, where they accumulate their data over the course of the year and they provide one large monitoring report that covers all of the standards for all the policies at the beginning of the year, and then actually roll it into their annual report and budget information. So they have this whole communication kind of scaffold, and each of the principals and central office directors do one pagers to help explain it from the context of your kid in their school, and then showcase student examples. So there's lots of different ways to kind of connect the reports to community engagement?
I think the student pieces, to me, that would be huge, having the student perspective on those things. But just looking at the website, just quickly, and this is where I think conflating might be the wrong word. So we have 4 governance policies. We have global ends, executive limitations, government managed connection, governance process.
And we do monitoring reports
On those 4.
2.
Well, we have in the
On 1 and 2. On 3 and 4, we do a board survey.
Well, as it's laid out on the website, it says it's a monitoring report. It doesn't differentiate with those 4. So all 4 of those have monitoring reports. So that needs to be fixed. Then we go into the federal or state required policies, and then the district administrative procedures, which are not policies. We're not necessarily reporting on those.
Yeah.
So I think, again, when we talk about how do we engage our community with these reports, cleaning that up so that it's clear as to what we're reporting. Maybe there's something there that says this is our like explaining what our monitoring pieces is, just as a highlight. But I think the idea, I don't think I'd want to see all of them at once, but I think the idea of connecting it to student engagement would make the most sense. And then do we even worry about this? Are we getting monitoring reports on the operational procedures, whether they're state or federal?
Just monitoring reports only on our policy governance.
Policy, okay.
Yeah. So only on global
ends, executive limitations.
Executive limitations.
Okay.
You can sort of think about it like a weather page. When you go to weather.com or whatever, you see this is what the current conditions are. So this should be the 2 or 3 things that you as a community member need to know about the SENS policy. That are going to attract you to want to dive deeper and maybe get to the point where you're looking at 5-year historical average temperatures for where you're at. But it's start at the beginning of what is important for a community member to know about the SENS policy and this monitoring report, and drawing in some sort of student or how it's applied in the school, giving a concrete example, whether it's a short video or some student words with a picture with an interview kind of full quote or something along those lines, not to get too deep into the marketing. That's Allison's job. Would help to go, okay, that's what this global ends gobbledygook means, to the average Joe.
And I too agree with more student voice and student input. And my focus oftentimes is on the students that don't tend to speak up. That those are the students I really want to hear from, because others are speaking up, and that's great. I want to hear from all of them. But so one of the things I was thinking about, and this is just an idea, but doing a questionnaire survey of students, that's all the students, to ask about specifically, especially the global ends. Because I think that's, those are lofty ends, and not sure what I want to say about that, but breaking it down through a number of questions of all of the students. I don't know if it's high school or what, and possibly doing it a few times throughout the year, and then I like this idea of then looking back at, okay, what's happening, what's changing, if it's continued to occur every year and possibly a couple times a year, but somehow bringing out student voice. How do they feel about, are they global, citizens of whatever it is that we're saying, and even, examples of, if a student says, yes, I feel like I am a global citizen, this is what it means to me. That's a lot of work, and there may be better ways to do it, but really pulling from the students, hearing more from them.
Sorry, John. I have a follow-up thought to that. Just from my experience, even today, my favorite day of the year and part of this work is being a student mentor for our school board reps and going into the high school and having the opportunity to speak with them. And I just think that what you're saying is so important, but a survey provides such flat data sometimes that, and I know like Tara and I have talked about this in the past, we don't have a ton of access to like our students if you're not a parent in every school, right? Like you're trying to get a real pulse. So if there were some sort of focus group, or not focus group, the opposite of a focus group, right? Like trying to just have those conversations that we could have administration and we could listen and engage, almost like a mini engagement series. I think we would gain so much more honest. My kids don't know if they're global citizens, even no matter how many ways we tell them. But having a conversation with them where they can like respond in that moment. And it's like I don't ever want to make more work for our educators. So if there was some way that we could actively participate in that rather than farming it out to them, unless there's built-in systems.
Yeah, well, and I see Tara has her hand up, so I want to get to Tara, and then I also want to make sure before we run out of time that we actually talk about the reports that we have historically received and what has worked well for us or not in the past before we start writing them. But Tara, let's.
Thanks. I hear what Sandra and Katie are saying, right? Like, if we decide to go down this path and open the door to do all of this work with students, I think we have to include graduates because they're going to at least be the ones to come back to us and say, here's how I felt prepared going to college. Here's how I felt prepared entering the working world. Here's how I felt prepared doing all of these things, because I don't think current students can tell us that they are becoming lifelong learners, because I just don't think it's true for every kid. And I think we need to define what is valuable in this data collection. And then honestly, I worry that we are getting too in the weeds here, knowing that like our job is to set up that guardrail. And I don't want to make this so hard on John and the rest of the administration that we just aren't getting quality results.
So Terry, I think those points are well taken, and I'm going to just like paraphrase the gist that I'm getting from the group, because I think your point is well taken. It's really on me to figure out how to make this feedback live in the monitoring reports for you all. And that is there's a desire to make the reports more accessible and in some fashion make the information in it more concrete and easily understood, even if it's not the whole report, that akin to Lisa's idea of the weather report. But then also to find a way to center and ground what we're talking about in student voice, so that it's more than just a chart or what's written in the paper, that we also have an idea for what that looks like from the student perspective and the student life in our buildings. Okay, so I'm seeing some heads, yes. So I wonder, unless anybody else has something they really want to share about that, if we could just briefly share either what has really worked for us with monitoring in the past, like your signal to me, like please don't change these things, or maybe hopes for monitoring that we haven't talked about yet. Monitoring reports.
I think this is a little bit of both. As much going away from the qualitative side of things to the student. Obviously, student input's great from my more data focused side. Having as much historical data as we can and having as much raw data as, not raw, but like historical benchmarks, not necessarily where you're getting it from, but where we can go deeper than an overview might be is useful in getting trend lines, getting deeper, getting understanding and knowing where issues may come up.
I think getting on a regular report schedule is going to be incredibly important for the district so that we know we always have this report this month and can get prepared to check that. I think that's going to be really helpful. I think also writing the reports with the thought that it is the board's insight into the inner workings and what might a board member need to be able to make a judgment on this is working or this isn't working from this report. Because that's how we read them. We read them on, you know, and if there's not enough information, then we just wonder what we're spending our time on, right? So it's what is the right amount of information? More is better, but analysis of the data is better than.
Something I noticed in the past, some of the past examples given that I think could be really nice to keep going is some of the individual reports are separated by like schooling level. So there's like K-4, middle school and high school. I think that's really helpful, possibly for community members who want to specifically look at what's going on in their student's school, and also sort of like separates out these like long reports with a lot of numbers into different sections that are easier to digest.
Other thoughts? No, it's been a little while since we looked at a monitoring report.
Actually, what we've had has been pretty good. So that's a complicated.
Yeah, I will just share in the policy governance trainings that I've attended, which I'm on my third one now, our reports are generally held up as exemplars, right? So my questions are in no way framing what we've done as not good in any fashion, but I'm just going through it for my first time trying to connect with you all.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Is that for me?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Thanks. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Cool. Yep. There's that background noise again. Yeah. So in terms of the monitoring report, my feedback, John, is just probably repeat from what I've said in the past when this comes up. So I'll be brief, but I think the monitoring reports are helpful to also indicate where the board might need to change its policies based on the changing times and the climate and other things that are happening. So to me, it's not just about, are we, doing what our policy says, but is the policy still directionally correct? And I think when we look at, are we complying, it's a good opportunity for us to say, do we, from an administrative perspective, do you really feel like this is still the appropriate policy to have based on whatever is changing in that area? And then secondly, it's always good to know, that we're in compliance, but there should always be something to probably work on when we do a review. And so, not downplaying or kind of like avoiding those areas within our within the policy that we see we could actually do a better job and helping to think through and share with us what you're going to do differently to improve compliance, because I don't think it's always binary. I think we can be pretty good and then we can be like really good, and going from pretty good to really good does require your thoughtful leadership, and documenting that in the report is desired. maybe the room muted.
Thank you for reminding us to unmute.
I didn't think it was like that good of a comment to leave everybody speechless. So I just.
I've been talking for minutes. All right, so I think, anyone else remote have something to say? The room is pretty good. John feels like he's got a good understanding. He's ready to write 10 reports for us for our next meeting.
October 13th, we got.
We're not ready to read them for them, so that's okay. Maybe 2. Okay. Moving on to the next agenda item. So Act 73 board discussion. So I think I accidentally sent our leadership group and John into a little bit of a tailspin on this one, so I'm going to apologize in advance. What is going on right now is the VSBA, the Vermont School Board Association, is surveying school board chairs on what they are doing in regards to Act 73, who they're working with, which other districts they're working with, which other districts they are interested in working with, how they're engaging their communities in who the community would like to merge with and what the community values. And the survey is out now and it's due back, I don't know, next week, I think. And our leadership group reaction was, oh gosh, what are we doing? How do we engage the community? What do we do? All of this. Some cooler heads, Allison maybe, we're like, why are we riling up the community? And then we talked her into it. And then she and John put a survey together that we were going to send out to the community to figure out and invite everybody to come to this meeting and give us feedback. And then I kind of got my brain back and said, wait, the task force is just trying to get a snapshot of what's really happening today. And any rushed community engagement or rushed outreach is only going to get people worried about what the next steps are. And we shouldn't do that in a way that isn't going to give us good information and give our community time to actually think about it and process it and share their true thoughts with us and not just a quick reaction. So we have scrapped the survey, and what we're going to tell the task force is we're not really doing that right now because we just did a merger. We're what, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, something like that into a merger, and COVID happened in that time frame. And if you need us to do that, we'll take some time and do that. But that's a process that took us years. It took us 18 months for the final piece. It took us 10 years to merge all 5 towns into one school district. So it didn't make sense. So I just wanted to make everybody aware that the School Board Association is doing a survey, that tomorrow at our regional meeting, there will be an opportunity for school board members to ask questions of the task force chairs, which is me and Martine. And we're gonna answer it based on what's actually happening today. I'm happy to entertain questions. I'm happy to hear from everybody about this, but it just did not feel like this is not the way we engage our community. We engage in our community really thoughtfully and carefully, and to spin everybody up for a survey that may or may not make a difference in the long run didn't feel good. So feedback, thoughts, comments.
No sense in getting riled up over nothing. They're asking what you're doing. We're not doing anything. End of story.
Yep. It's not that we're not open to working with other districts. It's not that we're not open. We have had phenomenal results from that. And is that what we're doing right now? If it is, let's start that process. But if it's not, then why start that process? So.
In your defense, Lee, it was more like there was like the time frame of it is what felt overwhelming.
3 weeks.
Yeah. And so we really knew that we couldn't do it, but felt, as always, like our community voice is so important. How do we,
it's required.
Right. How do we access that.
Has anybody reached out to us?
So the School Board Association has sent a survey to all school board chairs across the state, whether they're members of the Vermont School Board Association or not. And
No,
it
no,
asks-
like CBU.
Oh, have any of the local
Yeah.
districts reached out to us? We have had 2 districts loosely reach out to us, and 1 district kind of sort of say, maybe we might want to work together, and all of them after that have said, we're good. So.
No, said.
And what about community members in our district hearing about this and asking us if we have any much outreach on that?
So that's why we're talking about this now, and
But
just,
on their own accord, not
Yeah.
having reached out.
yeah, so none, that's not true. A few over time have said, why don't we just merge with X district, full stop, for lots of different reasons. And what I share back with them is it's a process that doesn't happen. Have you ever heard of a company merging? Just like, I mean, it's the same thing with the school district. It takes a minimum of 18 months.
Right.
If you're going to do it well, it's going to take a little longer than that. You have to do so many legal things, contracts, and so that, I guess I want everyone to be able to answer those questions.
I'm just saying we haven't had an anecdotal groundswell of people asking, are we thinking of merging? It's been a trickle. It's been the same for the last 10 years, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it's been 2 or 3 people in the last 2 or 3 years. Yeah. Yeah. So, just, comments, thoughts. Apologies to Allison, apologies to John. So,
Ask a question.
yeah.
I'm just thinking about BSBA asking this information. I feel like there's a big disconnect between the BSBA and the rest of the world at this point, because my feeling is I'm waiting to hear what the recommendations from the legislative committee is going to be and what that looks like. It seems, and I know the BOCES thing is maybe part of this, like it seems premature to even think about what the possibilities are, because we're gonna, whether it's round the community up or soliciting information, none of those options might be on the table. And so you've just then irritated everybody, because what was the point?
Yeah, the legislature and the governor in Act 73 gave 4 months to this task force to put a plan together and get community input on
Oh, so that,
so it's not the BSBA.
got it. I guess like that's
BSBA is a vehicle for getting.
for doing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess like it didn't, the community engagement piece, I guess, was missing in my mind. It was like, the legislative committee is going to bring together 3 proposals. That's kind of where I think the other aside to this is that
With community input, that's the part of it that's
the part,
included in the
right? That's the part that was very like small letter glossed over. I missed that one, and I think maybe a lot of people did, because nobody's coming to us and saying what's going on. Here's what I think should happen. My other concern in any of these things is the loudest voice is the one that's heard the most, and that might not necessarily be representative of an entire community. So for me is, how do we get not just parents of school community or to-be parents or former parents of school-age children, but it's every single person who is affected by this, and that's essentially every homeowner and every renter in your community who's paying property taxes in one shape, way, or form. So how do you get 100% or 90+% response rate?
Put it with the tax bill.
Well, I think we're up against kind of a hard wall in Huntington, where there are still so many hard feelings from the last merger that went on. So I think from the people that I've talked to about merging and the questions that I've heard far prior to my time even coming to these meetings, it doesn't feel like a controllable situation. It doesn't feel like that we really have much of a say yet in what could possibly happen. So the questions are really, where do we provide that feedback, and to what end could that, what's the most effective way to provide the feedback, and what feedback is really actually valuable? What can we have a say in, you know?
Yeah, and I'm gonna go back to 4 months isn't enough time to even create the maps, let alone create maps, send it out to communities, get feedback, fix the maps or modify the maps based on that feedback, and then it's just not enough time. So, so the question when? During the legislative session, once the legislature once the different committees start talking about actual maps is the right time. And we should watch that closely, and we should probably figure out how to get our community engaged in that process in February. Yeah.
Are there other models or not models, but other examples of collaborations that are happening that have been publicly shared?
In Vermont?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Schools all the time.
I mean, it's just 3 districts today, I'm gonna forget their names, but in the Woodstock, Hartford area, sent a letter in to say we want to work together.
That's awesome.
To the task force. That came out of a few hours ago.
They want to work together with?
Together, those 3 districts.
Those 3 districts want to work together.
That might be beneficial.
Yep. Especially because Woodstock needs a new school. And
yeah.
They build it the right size that all of the students can, it could be really, really great. So, yep. So, I'm filtering so many comments from the meeting today. I want to keep us on chat. So,
Is it recorded?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Fun.
So anything else on this Act 73? Go to the meeting tomorrow night. It's remote. You can attend it from your own place of comfort, whatever that is. Ask any questions or send your questions in advance and be there to listen to the questions. And school board members can hear from as much time as we have to talk about the task force and what's going on. So,
do we know if it's recorded? I have a soccer game to coach.
I think it's recorded.
Okay.
Tara, do we know if it's recorded?
Everybody should have gotten the notice in their email just before our board meeting from the VSBA. I'm opening it to see if it says it's being recorded because I can't remember off the top of my head.
It doesn't say either way.
Yeah, it doesn't say.
Yeah, it doesn't say.
You can text me.
I'll find out.
I'll share.
Yeah, and I can't remember from last year because it's not right, like when VSBA records and posts them, so you have to log into the VSBA site to access it because it's not accessible by the public per se. It's accessible by school board members who are a part of the VSBA.
Right.
It says you can request a recording. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Anything else on 73? Okay, we're catching up. We have a seconded motion from the Finance Committee to approve a reserve fund transfer. John, are you going to do this or is Lisa?
Rock, paper, scissors,
It's fine. As you may recall, we have a budget shortfall this year because of unexpected expenses. One of the things we talked about to cover that shortfall was to transfer from the Capital Reserve Fund. The other interesting twist is that you can only have funds in the Capital Reserve Fund for 5 years before it starts to draw penalties. And we actually happen to have slightly more than enough that is coming up with that 5 years to cover all of the capital projects that we have for this fiscal year, as well as a few other unexpected ones that have come up, and that's detailed in the memo. Does that
Yeah, so the finance committee agreed that this would be a good use of these funds before we incur a penalty and help to cover some of the budget issues.
I can add just as a fun fact, I was at the VSA, the Superintendent's Association and the School Business Managers Association joint meeting last week where we were working with our colleagues across the state on budget issues. Capital reserves is a huge issue across the entire state, and this 5-year rule is really compromising school districts' ability to address larger capital projects. This is coinciding with new rules or relatively new rules on bonding and how that plays into a different penalty calculation for school districts. And so
Excess something threshold.
excess spending threshold. And so it used to be that a lot of school districts ran with small reserves because of restrictions on how they could be used, knowing that they could bond themselves out of a big problem, but that pathway doesn't exist anymore. And so school districts are feeling increasingly cornered in on facilities issues. We are actually in great shape as far as this issue goes. We're going to clear that 5-year balance for us. We have full facilities that are in very good shape, and we have a great capital replacement plan when it comes to the items that are coming up at end of life or near end of life. In addition to the capital reserve balance, we also have a positive fund balance that is available for use. And that is the other thing that we talked about in the finance committee related to this. We deferred a motion or consideration of using that fund balance to address the remaining part of the shortfall until after we get through the winter, so that we have a firmer handle on the expenses that can fluctuate pretty widely for us as a district, depending on how cold it is and how much snow we get, things like that.
And the other good thing about this, what will remain in the capital fund reserve should cover a replacement roof for the largest building, which is the metric that we try to use for how much we have in capital reserve.
That's true. That's like the red line. We can't draw the reserve fund below that kind of that measure, and we're still in good shape there.
Question. So it comes in as a seconded motion, so the next thing we're gonna do is vote on it. So I just really wanna have an opportunity for anybody who might have questions to ask.
Who recommended all these grease traps being replaced?
They were required, it's a violation.
The state? I don't just see a bunch of them on here, so I was like, somebody either is a great salesman.
No, and actually I can tell you families from Camel's Hump will tell you, so the Camel's Hump one has not taken place, and it started to fail today, actually. Yeah. So we had a major kitchen issue at Camel's Hump.
It was a beautiful day and they enjoyed lunch outside. Down here.
You were my kid who insisted on going to an upstairs classroom.
My kid was like, I don't know, it smelled like gas in the cafeteria. So I was like, great, come hear about it later.
So this is time. Good catch though.
Other questions? Ready to vote? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, unanimously passed. Thank you, everybody. Our next item on the agenda is the superintendent update.
Okay. Good. This is my first written update to all of you, and I will fully admit I went back through the past 3 years of superintendent updates just to get an idea for what has been shared with you all at different points during the year. So hopefully you're seeing a familiar approach with some other things that I wanted to sprinkle in or include. One thing that is really exciting, so we're just talking about money-related pieces. Nicole, our Director of Finance, and I have been working, and this year we'll be working on a major project, which is to get the per unit pricing for us when we look at our budget. So that will allow us to say, on a per student basis, how much services cost us actually, so that we can measure the return on investment for that. So that's looking at something like a reading intervention for a second grader and being able to determine for the intervention period, how much does it cost us to provide that specific service? And then what is the anticipated gain that we get from that? And then we can make comparisons and look across the system and also from our system to other systems to measure our efficiency and find where we're really doing very well and where we need to pay closer attention. So that's something that's in here that's really interesting. We already talked about the facilities piece, which I included in here. But I'll just say again, we have an amazing facilities team, and you all get to travel to all of our different buildings and see the good shape that our facilities are in. So this capital transfer and keeping this capital plan going is important to us as a district. Staffing is another thing that I put in here. So we have a couple positions that are persistently difficult to fill, but absolutely critical to our operations. Bus drivers is one of those, and that's actually a really acute need for us right now. If you're listening, it's a great job. The pay is competitive, it's flexible, the benefits are great, and you get to work with our incredible students. We are very short there, so we actually have our transportation supervisor and our transportation director driving almost every morning and every afternoon and evenings and weekends to provide field trips and athletic transportation. So that department is stretched super thin right now. And then I also at the end included on the digital version links to the surveys that are part of the superintendent transition plan. We're collecting data right now from community members, from students, and from staff across the district, and the response rate has been really robust, which is great. There's lots of great data there that I look forward to sharing at a later date, but I can preview that at least so far, it is not a surprise, I think, to anyone here. People love our schools and are really proud of our schools, love the staff in our schools, and are excited about continual improvement. Happy to go into detail on other pieces that are in here. I didn't go through everything, but
Questions?
I have a couple of nitty-gritties for other people.
You're welcome to start, Ethan.
One, I think sort of following up on the fund transfer, I think the investment that we make in the schools and putting this money in and keeping them is well worth it. I think about other schools that are struggling with their buildings. I don't know the situation that they're in, but to be in a dire shape of having to build a new school sounds terrible. And I'm really glad that we're in this place and would encourage us all to keep supporting that ongoing maintenance. I think the fact that we ongoingly have shortages with our buses speaks to the community comments earlier, and again to my request of thinking about transportation differently, because this is clearly not a sustainable model. We've been year after year after year having a shortage of bus drivers, and it's not getting any better.
It's a statewide issue, actually.
And I was just going to speak to that, and that this is, I have actually tried to put together a CDL training program for adults. It's nearly impossible because I think this is an opportunity for collaboration countywide. No school wants to do it with anybody else. That's been my experience. So I think we need to, if there was a place for us to work with other communities, busing might be one. But I also think that we have to re-examine our actual vehicles that we're using for bus driving. And I think with field trips is a really good example. You may or may not fill up a full bus on a field trip. And if you're driving 10 kids around in a giant bus, maybe that's happening or not, but we need the data to help support is the bus system in place. The last thing, I don't want to your point, is the shared calendar idea. I think that's great. I see inconsistencies even with a shared statewide effort. For example, we're closed on Friday.
And Thursday.
Friday. For students, yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Not every school is closed Friday also.
Yeah.
So like if you're going to CTE, you have to go to school on Friday. So I think it's great to have all of these things in here. My sister is a school teacher in New York City and lots of holidays throughout the year, which is great. They're doing it as a single citywide entity. That's over 1 million kids in that school system across 5 boroughs. The scope and space of that distance is way bigger than what we're talking about here in Chittenden County. So I think anything that we do with a calendar has to be done in conjunction with the other districts, at least in this county, and at least with our connections to tech centers. Because it's crazy to have different half days, different schedules, but that's kind of the nitty-gritty thing.
Act 73 addresses a statewide calendar, and the Agency of Education is leading that effort, and see how that turns out.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I thought for sure someone would pick up on something, so I didn't say it when I was doing my highlights, but I will offer one other thing. Again, I did include at the bottom with the budget development piece, we do have a really challenging year ahead of us for budget development. It is complicated by cost factors that we don't control. Health insurance is one of those, and despite recent reforms in that area, VHI actually has spent down their reserves over the last 3 years, so we will not see any relief. We're still looking at another double-digit increase for health insurance for next year. And we also have to cover the budget hole from this year in next year's budget. So just those two things together will actually push us to about 4% increase without touching any other cost factors for next year. And so we are working really closely to finish the staffing model so that we can actually model out the rest of the budget, bring that back to the finance committee. We have a target from them of a 3% budget increase for right now. That we'll work diligently to meet, but cost factors are not working in our favor right now. So I just figured we should own that upfront.
I have just 2 things. One, I just wanted you to know that the career opportunities page link isn't working.
No.
And I know in times past looking for jobs on our website, you get brought to the is it County Services or whatever School Spring. That's how long I've been doing it. And also I thought it could be helpful to include the dates of the listening sessions. I sort of lost track of that.
Sure.
Would be good for community members.
And the
One tomorrow morning in Huntington, if anyone's around.
The link to sign up is no longer active. So if someone goes back to the email from Laura from a while ago, that link is no longer active.
To sign up for a listening session.
Correct.
Okay.
And if we're on nitpicks on forms, felt that there are multiple lines with only a couple words on both of the surveys. Because of is by itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Formatting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right. Thank you. Good job with your first superintendent update. District quality standard rubrics. So on the table over there, attached to your agenda, we have a multi-page rubric for district quality standards. We didn't put a lot of time on the agenda for this today because we thought this would be a quick introduction. But since we're ahead of schedule, we'll spend a whole 10 minutes on it. Actually, we could spend more than that. We spent a whole half hour. And maybe it won't have to be on a future agenda, but it will because we're going to have to. So, Tara, do you want to do this or do you want me to do this?
You can do it. Unless your voice.
That was not.
Unless, Edie, I know you're like still sick. I could give you like the nickel tour over the DQS standards.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Right, because it is something I've been bugging you about after knowing that these were going to happen, and then the rubrics were finally released. So essentially, we have to use this rubric to grade ourselves by November 21st. So because the AOE was late getting these to us, they've given us an extension on our grade deadline, which is November 21st. So I don't know who's had the opportunity to kind of flip through these already. A majority of them refer back to the district itself. But when you get to page 15, 113.1, et cetera, this is where the board, where we have to essentially use this rubric to grade ourselves. And I think, Edie, when you and I were talking, that maybe we ask a couple of folks to kind of take this on to go through the standards here and work on it in a smaller group rather than the whole board doing it together. Now I can't hear you.
Thank you. Sorry about that. So ideally, we'll go through it at a high level now, pages 15 through 29, which are the board responsibility pages. And then it would be amazing to have one or two board members be willing to go through and grade our board. And then at a future meeting, we'll review it as a group and say, yeah, we agree with these grades. And so a couple of people would have to go through and say, you know, we put us on approaching, or we graded this one on proficient, or we graded this one on whatever. And this is why. And then the board would concur, we vote on it, and then we send it in to the agency along with the rest of the district standards. So just to go through, right, you know, using an equity lens, which is the state, like there are things here that are state standards that there is question as to whether the federal executive orders are going to impact, right? So we're just going to go with state standards, and we're going to forget about anything that's not happening in Vermont for a few minutes. So through an equity lens, the board of each unit of education, as applicable, adopts a vision and measurable goals to support continuous improvement and monitors student academic progress and wellness. So we would have to grade ourselves. Where are we on this, and how does that work? Understanding that we're a policy governance board, right? So, where are the rest of them?
Yeah, what page is that?
That was on page 15.
So page 19 would be the beginning of the next section for. So there are some sections where they differentiate between traditional governance and policy governance. There are some sections that when you look at it, you probably will wish were also differentiated. So it can be confusing to bounce back and forth between the two sections.
Well, and I think when the state was putting these together, because they brought it to the VSBA 1.5 summers ago. They had trouble differentiating between an SU and an SD because they were asking questions that didn't really pertain to school districts and only pertain to supervisory unions. So I think it came out more complicated than it could have been.
Okay. I cough stopped me from making a snarky comment, so I'm gonna keep going. So going on to page 19, school districts that have officially adopted or active using policy governance. What's the question? At least, yeah, okay, so you just have to read the standard and figure, okay, at least annually the board formally evaluates the performance of the superintendent based in part on the superintendent's progress toward meeting agreed upon goals. It's not at the top, it's on the side, okay. Yes, it's very confusing the way they have this set up. And so on. So the board annually assesses performance, including adhering to agreed protocols, processes, and policies. I'm just going through the different standards on the left side of each of the pages. I'm not looking at what is proficient and what is beginning or any of that. The board annually reviews whether and or how its actions and contributions have impacted the school system's success in meeting its goals. They get a little more complicated as it goes on. The board annually evaluates the effectiveness of community engagement and public communication efforts. The board undertakes its own continuous learning and develops and provides members with opportunities for ongoing training and support to maintain and increase their skills and understanding. The board discusses, adopts, and revises policies on a regular basis to ensure the system is supporting and meeting the needs of every student. The board ensures its annual budget aligns with its stated policies and provides an equitable distribution of resources to help meet the needs and goals of every student. So, let's read. Well, do you want me to keep reading them? Like, are folks going to do this? Is anybody reading these and thinking, I don't even know what this is? I don't know what we're hearing with that. I mean, I think, we do all of them. We do some of them better than others. And so we just need, ideally, a volunteer to go through this and say, or two, and say, this is where I think the board falls, and be able to have credible evidence as to why. And then we'll talk about it at the first meeting in November. Is that where we have it on that calendar?
I'm also happy to support.
Can I ask to tag along for some of those conversations as a
Yes, it's a great learning opportunity.
person?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Just for clarification, I understand what we are supposed to do, and we give ourselves a grade, like with the rubric. And then, can you remind me what happens? They then decide whether to accept that grade, or they grade us in return. And where does that go? Where does that mean? Like, is U.S. News and World Report going to say, whatever school district received this grade on these district quality standards? That's what's.
So what the agency has said is that the district quality standards will only come into play for schools that are not meeting other accountability standards. And in those situations, these will come into play. They haven't done it yet. They haven't, like, this is the first time. So we don't know what it's going to look like over time, if they're going to expect progress, if they're going to, we don't know. But that's what they have said so far, that they're gathering data that will be used only if you're not meeting other standards.
It's like the third example of a penalty that we're hearing in this meeting. It kind of feels like, it feels like a shift with how
it feels like we're not being supported, we're being held accountable.
Which is okay, but it's an overwhelming amount of that in the conversations of late.
That's fair.
Yeah, but isn't part of what's going on statewide shaking things up? And so that's going to be part of growth.
We hope.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's
growth is
change is an
challenges.
opportunity, and we have to look at it as an opportunity for growth, an opportunity for improvement. If we're gonna,
Hard things make things easier.
I guess this is a hypothetical, but like, are there going to be like carrots as well as sticks with this? Like having support to go from proficient to advanced, rather than just being assessed if you're not making things. This seems like almost a plan to get you there. Can this be a plan to get you to the next level if you are generally doing well but can do better?
I mean, ideally, right? Like if 20%, 50%, pick a number of districts are, approaching a standard, it would be an opportunity for the agency to provide education to districts to help everybody, right? Like, so I would hope that that's how it's used, but we don't know yet. Yeah, Allison,
I think about this a lot, and I'm going to say this with what I hope comes across as open-minded and constructive. But I think it's important to realize that, like, as much as we're in public service with a lot of factors beyond our control, and we're just trying to figure things out, the same thing is happening at the state, where they're just in public service, and there's a lot of things that are beyond their control that they're just trying to figure out. It's like we're the smaller fish in the state pond. Like our counterparts at the state level are smaller fish in a federal pond, so there's like so many different forces at play. And I think it's really easy when we fall into these conversations about things that are passed down to us at the state to express like a lot of frustration. And I do it too, for sure. But having worked in state government and seeing how difficult it can be sometimes to get things done, and seeing firsthand how people are operating for the most part with really good intentions. Like people don't get into this work often because they're chasing a big paycheck. I think we should try our best to approach some of these initiatives with like a spirit of collaboration and open-mindedness for some of the stuff that gets passed to us. And I know it's really difficult sometimes because some of it seems really frustrating. But we're just another link in this like large ongoing chain of systems that are impacting other systems with people who are, under-resourced and trying their best.
it's a good framing. Thank you.
I think, Allison, what you said is spot on. I maybe just kind of the way we spun it initially, I don't think this is something that we're grading. I think we take that vocabulary out. I'm going to look at Sandra because as a retired educator, you would use a rubric not to say you passed or you failed. You're using it as an opportunity to say, here's where you're at, and here are the things that we're gonna work on. I almost look at this too. I don't know. I think there would be some value for all of us to do it, but I think in a way that says everybody starts at the beginning, yes or no, move to proficient. Like you don't pick where you are. In a lot of ways, you want to actually be beginning, approaching, and proficient, and all of those things. So I almost see this as like a Google form where you are working through each. And then we aggregate kind of our scores. Say, okay, in 113.1, 10 of us feel like we're proficient, 4 of us are at approaching, whatever that number is, and then that allows the conversation to kind of like, why are we there? Why are you choosing that side versus the other side? And I think just again, as Allison was sort of saying, is there's real benefit for us to do this work, right? It's a self-assessment. And if we don't worry about what the AOE or somebody else might do with it later, just as a perspective for us and where we're at as a board, I would just add, I think it would be valuable for all of us to engage in it in some way. not just sort of push it off to a few people, unless Helen wants to do it all by herself.
Oh, no, I'm just listening.
And Edie, you mentioned credible evidence. What might that look like?
Our policies and our monitoring reports is credible evidence. Our Golden Apple Awards might be credible evidence, annual event with the community.
We've got a superintendent evaluation process that we do.
Yep.
It seems like there's a lot of overlap between a lot of these different monitoring reports and all of the reports that we're reporting out. It seems like we can pull some information from a lot of different things.
Yeah, well, we don't have to provide evidence on this. We just have to be able to support it if they ever came back to us. So we just have to know how we're marking ourselves, why we believe that that's the right, and just be honest with it. Because there are areas that we're outstanding in, and there are areas that we're figuring it out still. So.
I would agree with you. This seems like a good way to, whether the AOE does anything with it or not, like this pretty good self-assessment tool. It's a collective self-assessment that'll give us a good overview of where we think we are.
Well, and I think it's also a good reminder that we as a board actually need to do our own monitoring reports under policy governance, right? There are whole chunks of policy governance that just pertain to board, and we should be monitoring ourselves. And some of that would come back to your credible evidence, but it's something we've done historically.
Right, we've chosen to do a survey, board survey instead.
Which is evidence, right? And we still could do aspects of that survey to support what we're saying is we're proficient or advanced in.
All right, I am not seeing any volunteers.
Well, I was just going to offer to try and Google form it and take a shot. I'm not promising anything, but and maybe I can send it to you, John, and you can kind of be like, oh, have you ever used Google Forms before?
I have lots of survey software.
Oh, yeah.
We could actually have a table where all of these would be listed, and then there'd be check boxes for the 4, and you just check off with all the ones that you feel, and then we could,
Google Forms, that's that.
Yeah.
So
I did.
So I'm happy to
all right.
do that.
And the board is comfortable with having a due date, everybody getting it done, and then we'll talk about it at a meeting. Awesome.
That might be the meeting.
November 10th meeting. So we'll have it due end of this month.
It's the 29th.
October.
End of October.
He's ready for September to be over.
Yeah, right around Halloween. We'll have it due around then.
I'll try to get it up at the end of the week, and then I'll bother you all.
I mean, 2 weeks is plenty of time for folks to have to sit with this. It really shouldn't take, it'll take more than 5 minutes, but it shouldn't take hours for sure. So just a little bit of quiet time where you can think and process and not get interrupted too often. Great.
You thought you had no volunteers, and you actually had 2 volunteers.
I'm so happy.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it. Lost my agenda.
And Helen's mentor will answer any of your questions. If you remember who Helen's mentor is. It's always. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from September 8th?
Motion to approve. Second.
Any discussion on the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I'm going to abstain because I wasn't at that meeting.
I'm also going to abstain.
Great.
Me as well.
Can I make roll call?
You're gonna abstain?
Yeah, I didn't make roll call.
Okay, so 3 abstentions.
4, I think. Allison also.
4?
Allison, Steve, and you.
Abstain, please. Yep.
Cheers.
Thank you. Committee updates. So Kevin just jumped off, but he is trying to figure out what's going on with the Regional Advisory Board. Just for everybody's update, the Regional Advisory Board is something that we serve on to help advise the career technical education. They usually have quarterly meetings. We haven't heard from them in quite a while about when any meetings are happening, but we should be getting information soon. So that's what that is. Kevin is our rep. I also often go to those meetings, and John would also go to those meetings.
Is there a chair of the board?
There
The rep?
is, but I don't know who it is.
Do you want me
And they have a new,
to, both directors?
we sent a flag to directors today.
Okay.
HR committee, do we have an update? We are about to start negotiations again with the teachers union. We have a 2-year agreement with the support staff. We have a 1-year agreement just for this year with the teachers, and we're starting negotiations again. That's our update. Community engagement, Allison?
We have not actually met yet this school year. We have a meeting next Monday at 8 a.m. We're looking forward to welcoming Helen to the committee. She's new. So thank you, Helen, for raising your hand to join us. We'll be sharing some feedback just from a committee-wide survey about goals and objectives for our committee for the year at our meeting on Monday. So if you're on the committee and have not yet responded to that survey, please do so before we meet on Monday. That's all.
Thank you. Finance and facilities, anything besides the seconded motion?
Also the budget target update that John gave, and we will be meeting again until November. We meet on the 3rd Thursday of the month at 6:00. Because a lot of school board meetings coming up will be about budget issues, so. Our targets.
Am I missing anybody? The SBA, there's a regional meeting tomorrow night, and the annual meeting is in October. And if you're gonna go, sign up soon, including me.
So just so if you do sign up, if you let me and Nora know as well, we keep track of it on our site.
I think Nora had reached out to everybody and said, respond to this email if you want to sign up. And then Nora was taking care of the signing up.
Even better.
Great, I should tell Nora. Okay, any other business? Do you have other business? No? Okay, nobody has any other business? All right, then can we get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. Thanks, Kyle. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, have a great night. See you all on the 13th, if not before. We're in Huntington. Before the
Where's your daughter?